Hello and welcome to the DrivingMaul show, season 1 episode. What episode are we on now? Geez, episode 25. Wow, there we are. We're getting old into our mid-20s, grown up. We really should be getting more serious, and we should not be drinking beer during the show. So thank you. Moa Brewing for me tonight. There we go. For our is the beer, and I'll be honest, this is number 2. I had a Boundary Road Brewery one earlier. I'm collecting empty cans, by the way. I'm wondering what I can do. Can I build something with empty cans of beer? So if you've got an idea of things you can build with empty cans of beer, let me know. As a kind of side note. Stephen's looking a bit horrified in the background there.
I don't know what you could build with a whole lot of beer cans. I'm pretty sure you can come up with something. You should just Google it, and it'll probably show you an array of things.
I've tried YouTubing it. Okay, so my inspiration, by the way, folks, because you're thinking, Paul, where's this come from? So Darwin have the beer can regatta every year, where they make boats out of beer cans, and then they race them. There are different categories. Some of them you're allowed a structure that you put your beer cans around, and other ones that you basically are just beer cans. And I thought, well, if you can make a boat out of beer cans, what else can you make out of beer cans? Basically, so there you go. That's my thinking behind all of that. The DrivingMaul show, by the way, comes to you at 8 p.m. every single Tuesday. We're talking about the hot topics in rugby and also in empty beer cans as well. So the topics we've got to go through tonight. And when Boa joins us, we'll have a chat, obviously, about the All Blacks versus the Pumas. Super Rugby have announced a new Trans-Tasman competition for 2021. New Zealand Rugby have announced the two preferred partners to expand Super Rugby to a 12-team competition in 2022, and that has led to some legal action as well. The Autumn Nations Cup had a game postponed due to COVID. Surprise, surprise. And they didn't know what to do about it. So let's talk about that. And also in the Mitre 10 Cup, we have semi-finals time this weekend with the Hawke's Bay opening up for free entry for their one. Now, is that a good thing, or is that them not really showing the worth of a semi-final? We'll see. An interesting point there. That actually was brought up by Simon Hughes on the Facebook page when I sort of cross-posted their thing. He said, "Hey, look, that just shows they're not actually valuing or seeing the value of a semi-final." So yeah, a whole bunch of topics there for us to get through and to discuss. And Aaron says that we can maybe race them on the pond at the Michael Joseph Savage Memorial. I'm not sure who Michael Joseph Savage is, but there we go. So Stephen's shaking his head. So all these cultural jokes just fly over my head, being a recent immigrant to this wonderful country that is New Zealand.
Aaron could be onto something actually, Paul. We could use your beer cans and maybe build them into little multi-hulls and have little yacht racing, up at Michael Joseph Savage Memorial, which is basically above the America's Cup course. So we can have the mini regatta.
Oh, fantastic! I can be the British boat. You can be Team New Zealand, and we can do our own beer can America's Cup. Brilliant!
I'd have to go and find some Lion Red cans somewhere, and then we could be Lion New Zealand. There you go.
Oh, wait, hey, sponsorship, guys. Hey, if you want to sponsor the new beer can America's Cup, obviously unofficial America's Cup, then please do get in touch. Obviously, thank you everyone who's joining us live. You can join us live on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter. Also, you can listen to us as a podcast. You'll find us in all your favorite podcatchers: iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, all those wonderful places. And we have been joined by the Statspert himself, Boa Athu. How are you doing, sir?
Very well. Well. What did I say? The weekend of upsets. I didn't quite tip the Argentinian Pumas over the All Blacks. However, Northland Tanifa, 4 tries, bonus point, bang, big punch landed. I hope you guys took my tip. Ching ching.
In a word, no.
No.
I'm out of pocket.
I did tell you guys, usually when I give out tips based on scientific statistics and numbers, 95% of the time, it's what we call a confidence interval. Stats 101. It does land, and that's exactly what happened. And as I alluded last week, the handling errors that really, they've really cut down the handling errors. They worked out their patterns, and I think, they've really got their rhythm. So well done to Northland Taniwha. Beautiful work. What can I say?
I was going to say, guys, the most amazing stat to me to come out of the weekend was the number 33. Because on Sunday, 3 teams scored 33, and it wasn't enough points to win you a game. Hey,
No, it was.
Oh, was it? Did somebody win 33 by 33?
I thought it was 33, 32 the scores. Were they 33, 34 the scores?
Could have been. I'm not 100% sure, but that was random. I thought they were all the losing scores. I do apologise. I'll have to jump on.
No, you could be. Yeah, you could be right. I'm trying to bring up TriVap, and it's the one time it's slow is when you need it. But there we go.
Murphy's Law, gentlemen.
We'll find out for you folks before the end of the show. So Boa, this All Blacks team who are going to beat Australia by handsomely 50 odd points comfortably. Obviously didn't even bother thinking that the Pumas would get within shouting distance. Suddenly have lost 2 back-to-back. You're prepared to accept that it is a transition period and there are some other decent sides out there now?
That's part of the equation. By and large, if you do look at the stats, I don't know, the All Blacks were invisible. They were asleep. They looked like they didn't really want to be there. They're very lethargic. And, they just didn't show up. When they decided to play a little bit of up-tempo footy, it was in the 74th minute, they just didn't turn up. They played in the wrong part of the field. And you have to say, Argentina were very, very strategic with their plan. What actually won them the game was, the All Blacks play this very predictable pattern where it's called 2-4-4-2. So every time they go to the edge, which is the closest to the touchline, they only commit 2 numbers to the ruck. The Pumas were onto it, and that is where they got their, good jackals straight over the breakdown. And they won, I think, 7 penalties on that edge. And, of course, you have to kick your goals, guys. You have to take your points. They got 8 penalties. They took 7 shots at goal. They converted 6. And there's your game. So you have to, I think this All Black side, they really need to understand that sometimes winning test match footy, you have to do it the old-fashioned way. Argentinians, by taking those shots at goal, they actually took out 23 minutes of ball live in place. That means everything just came to a standstill. They really slowed it down. So, all credit to the Pumas. I think more than outplaying, they actually outthought the All Blacks. And to be fair, the All Blacks really didn't do themselves any favors. They were just flat. They were lethargic. And they deserve to actually lose by a lot more.
That's a really good point you make there around about that 23 minutes of game time that just didn't happen or was spent watching a guy take kicks. Because one of the things that I think a bunch of us are expecting were the Argentinian bench wouldn't be as strong and that they would have and that basically they would fade in that last sort of 10, 20 minutes due to basically not having any game time recently and not being match fit. But as you say, by taking 23 minutes of game time away, that way they could keep more of their starters on the pitch longer. They didn't have to take as many substitutions, and they could last all the way to the end there. So yeah, no, good point. I hadn't really kind of thought through the impact of the time taken up with those kicks at goal and how that might impact on the fitness side of things.
Yeah, I mean, it's test match footy. You have to take the points on offer. It's pretty simple, And the Argentinians, rightly, Arun makes a comment saying they were outcoached. Yeah, absolutely. They just knew where to spend their energy, get most return on investment, which was on the edge. And of course, the territorial, the tactical kicking game, none of the kicks which the All Blacks put up in there were actually contestable. The only time they actually contested it, there was a knock-on. And there was a slight line break on the left flank. So yeah, it's an alarming drift in form, but I think it's more upstairs than anything else. I'm just sort of I'm hopeful that in a couple of weeks that this All Black side can turn this around, turn up. And I think Coach Ian Foster might be fighting for his life, gentlemen.
Yeah, not the only coach to be doing that. I mean, Wayne Pivac for Wales in a similar situation as well. There, I think he's won 1 game, lost 4 or something in his opening 6 games, something like that. Oh, sorry, well, lost 5. Sorry, his opening 6 games or so. If you exclude the Barbarians game, I think. So he's another coach that's had a tough start of it. But what do you think about this coming week, Stephen? Any sort? I mean, we've talked for an hour about this game last night on Sunday night doing the review show. But any of those points that Boa brought up that you that interest you?
Yeah, no, listen, he's spot on, and I think like the other night we gave a lot of credit to Argentina because at times like this is all you can really do is sit back and marvel at their performance, as opposed to critiquing what the All Blacks did wrong. I suppose if they had to look back at that game now, I suppose the first sign of madness is doing the same thing and expecting a different result, and they kept going down the one channel. And of course the Argentinians, I think I read a stat there where they actually were either 100% tackle rate or they might have missed one at the very end on Caleb Clark, which is an amazing stat. But boy, it's easy to make those tackles when guys are playing the same tactic throughout the whole 79 minutes of the game. You know, I think sometimes when you come up against a team where you are taking a bit of a pounding up front, I think you've got to look at the tactics that you're using, and this is where your game drivers have really got to look at maybe, hey, let's do something different. We're actually going to kick down into their 22 and force them to play out of their 22 or their red zone, and we can give them a little bit of line speed, exactly what they're actually giving us. But I suspect, and not having seen the whole game, but seen highlights of what Argentina were doing, the All Blacks just kept going down the same channels. Even everybody from Geordie Barrett to Bodie Barrett to Anton Leonard-Brown were all running direct. Really, guys? Seriously? Was that your game plan? Hey, good on the Argentinians.
Here's another interesting stat. The All Blacks made 4 incursions to the Argentinian 22 in the entire game. So that's 4 entries into the 22. They scored on 3 occasions. Once when Richie Maunga took the shot at goal just prior to halftime, which was the correct call. Yep. And they had a few opportunities like that, sort of midfield and the 40-meter mark. They should have taken the points. Instead, they made a few mistakes. And of course, both tries were scored when they went into the 22. The last try, of course, in the 81st minute for Caleb Clark. But again, the point I'm trying to make is, as Stephen rightly alluded to, you have to play the game in the right part of the field. If you're only going to go to the opposition 22 just 4 times in 80 minutes and minus 23 minutes of stoppage plus all other injuries, and when the referee was explaining what was going on and all the arguing and all the argy-bargy, you actually you're not doing yourself any favor. So it was really not very clever rugby from the All Blacks, and I think the Argentinians were onto it. And they played brilliant test footy. They played the clock. They played the ref. You saw some real emotion come out. And I hate to say it, guys, but I saw shades of that semi-final loss to England, where when the All Blacks were in a bit of a hole, they just couldn't know where to find a shower to dig themselves out of it. Instead, they were just floundering, and it just kept sinking deeper, deeper, and deeper.
Boy, just a quick question for you: were the All Blacks guilty of sticking to their processes and sticking with the same game plan as opposed to changing it up?
Yeah, absolutely. Because, as I said, they played this very predictable 2-4-4-2. And, a couple of times they got turned over brilliantly. And there was one goal, I have to say, it was quite marginal, where I think it was the Argentinian captain. He lost his shape. He put his hands on the deck and he quickly played the ball. It was a crucial play, but the point I'm trying to make is absolutely they just kept going through that. So rather than play the same shape, they should have changed it. They should have looked at kicking better off the hand, playing the territorial game. And of course, if the tries aren't coming, you have to take your shots at goal or look for the drop goal, get some points. We just looked really brain dead for ideas of getting points, and we just looked panic. Our body language was out, and I have to say, guys, the level of energy, the enthusiasm, it just lacked it, which was really, really strange. And that's probably been the biggest sticking point and the biggest backlash.
Yeah, a little bit of credit to the Argentina. They created a lot of, as Michael Tuiloma said in the chat at the end of the day, it was more the Argentinians winning this game than probably the All Blacks' mistakes, because they forced the All Blacks into errors and also forced this young side into panic. So at the end of the day, they take all the credit in my book.
Yeah, from a coaching point of view, guys, it's what I call the sandpaper and the silk. I think we were focusing too much on the silk without doing the sandpaper, the abrasive, the rough and tough stuff up front. And what the Argentinians did was they sensed this and they really took it to the All Blacks. And I think we came off maybe third, fourth best. And Argentinians they pretty much handed our backside to us.
Oh, look, as you say, solid tackling in the middle, knowing that there wouldn't be players being committed at the fringes in the rucks, and therefore on the wide rucks, and therefore knowing when to go for the ball and when not to. Great play, good coaching. Congratulations to Argentina, fully deserved the win. So, question. So where does this now leave the Rugby Championship? Who is now favourite?
I reckon we'll be able to answer that on Saturday night, Paul.
Well, if the Argentinians can back this performance up, and history says that they've always had issues with consistency. However, this shines a spotlight on our friends from South Africa, because what was their argument? You need 400 minutes of first-class rugby to be playing test footy. That was just made an absolute mockery of. And I don't think anyone in the wildest dreams would have expected Argentina to turn up in this fashion and deal to the All Blacks, who've been playing a lot of competitive footy. So this really shines a spotlight on all this post-COVID, lockdown preparation and what's the best method. Do you overcoach the guys? Do you flood them with all this conditioning and fitness? So I'd be really interested to see what Argentina have been doing in camp, purely from a coaching point of view, bottle it up and use it for the future.
Bottle up and sell it, absolutely. Now, but to go back to that, as to who is favourites for the Rugby Championship, boys, both of you avoided answering the question.
Pumas, no question. If they can back it up, 100%. I think Pumas all the way. In theory, they will get better. So let's hope that is the case. If they bring the same performance against the Wallabies, they will absolutely smoke the Wallabies. They will blow them out of the park. And if they get even better, boy, the All Blacks have a major, major hurdle lying in waiting in 2 weeks. And if that does happen, I think the Pumas will beat the All Blacks twice in one season.
Well, I'm going to go the other way. I'm going to go Australia. I don't know if Argentina can back this performance up again. And I think it's a huge, with 2 games to go against Argentina, Australia, I think it's an opportunity to get a bit of a leg up over everybody, especially after beating New Zealand last week. And being at home as well, I think they'll gain a bit of confidence out of that. They're in the perfect place. One thing I do want to say, guys, just about the New Zealand media, which really annoys me. A lot of people coming out of the woodwork saying, "Oh, shame on this current All Black team, first team to lose to Argentina." Then they tracked back over a team that lost to Ireland a couple of seasons back in Chicago and again in Dublin. You know what? It's just the evolution of the game. And some teams in the professional era are getting better and better. And the reality is, even a team like the All Blacks, if you're off your game or you're not up for your game, you're going to get knocked over. Good grief, we saw Ireland knock over both Scotland and Ireland at the Rugby World Cup previously, South Africa as well. This is going to happen as long as those smaller nations improve. That's what you're going to get. I mean to say, I'd love the day when the likes of Samoa and Tonga would either knock over a New Zealand or an Australia. We know that Samoa has knocked over Australia in the past, but it can only be good for the game.
It's great that it is more competitive. And one of the cool things that was mentioned here, is this the biggest day for Argentinian rugby? The answer was no. Coming third at the 2007 Rugby World Cup, that was the biggest achievement for Argentinian rugby. This wasn't. So it's good that they've kept this in perspective, and it's something that potentially they could back up. To back up 4 weekends on the trot, I think is a real big ask here for Argentina. Both New Zealand get a break between their games, and Australia do. And so I think, at the moment, Australia probably are slight favourites, but boy, oh boy, it's tight and could go anyway at the moment in the Tri-Nations.
Yeah, gentlemen, look, the reason why I am going towards Argentina is because purely based on their performance last week, based on the science, quote, science of lockdown training methods, and trust me, I've been doing a lot of reading around this for the last 4 months. They just threw that textbook right out of the window. And also the player base. You have to admire that the Argentinians are using the same bunch of players at their disposal. And if you look at what Dave Rennie's doing, he's got one of the I think it was Unival, the Melbourne Storm recruit. He's actually from St. Kitts, isn't he? So the whole St. Kitts connection to him really well for the Wallabies. He's been brought into that camp. So that tells me that Rennie is pursuing a certain style of coaching and a certain type of strategy in recruitment. Whereas if you look at what Ledesma and the Argentinians are doing, they've had an extremely tough time this year, gentlemen. They were one of the worst hit nations with COVID-19. And how on earth they managed this is just incredible. So for that very reason, I like the unorthodoxity and the unpredictability of this Argentinian side. And if based on run-on form, all they have to do is replicate this 3 weeks back to back to back. Now, that's easier said than done. But based on what we are seeing, given that they've come up fresh up after 402 days of test rugby, maybe this is the formula. You play lockdown test level footy.
I think there's a couple of things. One is, Mario Ledesma has got. He's the only coach that's still here from last year, so he's not starting from fresh. He's building on what he had last year as well. The Argentinians are used to dealing with adversity. They very rarely get the perfect run up to any game ever. So look, it's all been good from them, and as you say, they've handled it very well. In this lockdown, I'm just concerned that 4 weeks of Test rugby back to back is a bit too much for any team, not just the Argentinians. And I was going to move on, but Steve, one last thing before we move on, then.
Yeah, just something to actually think about it. We know that these Argentinians can stay in the fight, and we actually saw that with the Jaguares in the Super Rugby final against the Crusaders. If you think back to that game, that was only little things, every little opportunity. The bounce of the ball didn't go their way. They stayed in that particular fight. And if we think back to that game, and I think Mario Ledesma was the coach of that side before he went to take on the Argentinian national side, these guys know how to stay in a fight and a scrap. And I think, like you say, their win coming third at a previous World Cup, the biggest in their history. I'll tell you what, this result will just be will basically be a little mental block that they get rid of whenever they play the All Blacks again, knowingly that, we've beaten these guys before. We can beat them again.
One last note, gentlemen. The Wallabies have publicly come out and said they're going to be very physical against the Argentinians this weekend. Given that they have some suspect or suspicious tackle techniques in the camp, don't be surprised if we see some cards coming out. So that might be a bit of an equalizer there as well.
True. Well, looking forward to it this coming weekend. Also, this coming weekend, we have the Mitre 10 Cup semi-finals coming up with Auckland hosting Waikato. Myself and Stephen will be at that game at Eden Park. So look out for our coverage on the New Zealand Sports Radio Facebook page. Before that, on the Friday night, there is Otago versus Northland down in Nelson. So not down in Nelson, what am I talking about? Down in Dunedin. After the Auckland Waikato game, there will be Hawke's Bay versus Taranaki. Now, that game has been opened up as being free, so there are no tickets on sale for that game. Simon put a good, Simon Hughes, regular listener, put a good comment on my Facebook page saying that, look, this actually shows the teams or shows the lack of worth from a financial point of view of making the semi-finals. In most sports, they budget not to make the semi-finals, and the semi-finals is their big sort of money day that gives them the big windfall money. Is that so? Is this actually is this a bad sign for Mitre 10 Cup rugby that they have to give away free tickets for the semi-finals, and it's not a payday?
Paul, I'm gonna jump in there. I think Hawke's Bay as a union have done reasonably well. If you think about it, they've had some good home crowns with a couple of shield matches. They've probably done better than some of the other unions. And of course, we only have to think back a week ago when that horrendous flood, that they had 24 hours of rain after the Wellington game, I think it was. And listen, a lot of that low-lying area was absolutely flooded. So I personally think this is just a gesture from the Hawke's Bay Rugby Union of giving something back to their public down in Napier who's been going through a hard time. I don't know if it's actually a sign of some sort of a financial issue. I'm expecting Hawke's Bay to be far too good for Taranaki on the weekend, given that Taranaki's taken a few hits in terms of injuries. But I think at the final, I don't know if they'll be so generous again. I think they're probably at the right time for that final. But that's my take on it.
So, I mean, last year, for example, Bay of Plenty also had a free semi-final and then charged for the final. We've seen the free final at Auckland at Eden Park a couple of years back as well. It's not so much. I wasn't talking about Hawke's Bay financial, but the sort of the weakness of the financial pull of the Mitre 10 Cup, I guess. And that it was an interesting, different take on it, Boa, than necessarily than everyone just saying, yeah, it's a great thing.
Yeah, look, I'm actually firmly with Stephen on it. I think it's more goodwill gesture, more public relations exercise for most of these teams. And if in the perfect world, if we had sponsors to underwrite all tickets in all games, ideally you'd want to have an open door and get as many people in there as you can, because that's the easiest way to promote the game, get more punters in. But yeah, I'm definitely with Stephen. I don't think that they're going to be this generous every game. They just want to make sure that they get the best possible turnout for the semi-final. Tick that box, go into the final, and maybe who knows, they might double the ticket price and make up a lost revenue.
They can't afford that. Aaron said, look, a season ago, Auckland Rugby did the free entry at Eden Park for the final. Yet they did. It was a huge success. It was a great day, yes, but did it lead to more people being interested in rugby, more people actually turning up to the Mitre 10 Cup games the following year? Not so sure.
Yeah, I think we that's up to the unions. They probably need to follow it up with some proper research, and it'd be interesting to see what kind of data comes out of it. But just want to back up what Arun says. Yeah, blue and white hoops all the way. I think Auckland, they're looking good. They're looking very, very good. One of my was my top pick right at the top of the season to go all the way. So there you go.
And then the final one is Tasman versus Bay of Plenty. And that is a double header with the Black Ferns versus the New Zealand Barbarians beforehand for that one down there. And that one is in Nelson. But so unfortunately, with only one of them being in the upper half of North Island, we'll only be making one of them this weekend. But I do have some good news around media access, and I'll be putting that on my Pulling Back the Curtains post that will go out this Friday. So if you are a supporter of New Zealand Sports Radio, and you can do that by going to nzsportradio.com, then you can become then you'll find out what that special media access news is that I've got coming up over in the next couple of weeks. So that's a little teaser for you for that post there. And Stephen, don't give it away.
No, not at all, Paul. I'm actually listen. I just had I don't even know if it's an epiphany, but I'm just I'm looking at with the championship semi-finals coming up this weekend. I'm looking at those two jerseys that you've got sitting behind you, mate. Is this a sign? I think it's a sign.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. It's a sign. You've got the Taranaki jersey there, and you've got the Northern Taniwha jersey to the right of you, or your left, I should say. But I do believe that the Northern Rugby Union has already uplifted the goalposts out of Seminole Stadium, so they might have to take a proposed final back to Kaikoui again. So
No, because look, Taranaki finished ahead of Northland, right?
No, they
So-
didn't.
Oh, no, they didn't. No, you're right. They didn't know. That's true. That's sorry. I'll stand corrected.
Northland finished ahead of Taranaki. That would be just something out of a different world. I mean, it's like you're probably more or less looking at Hawke's Bay as one of the finals. But I do believe, I'm going to ask Boa, are Northland a chance against Otago?
I think so, definitely. Upward trend, as I said, one of the key statistics is the handling errors. And if you see where they make most of their meters is on the edge. So they've actually figured out that the lesser contact they go into, it's more silk, lesser sandpaper, the right amount of sandpaper and more silk. And that's what's winning them the game. So I'm going to go again. I'm going to go Taniwha to score 4 tries. One last nail in the coffin. Otago, bang, you're going down.
Michael Tui Loma reckons it'll be at the Waipu Rugby. You might be pushing it there a bit, but Michael, but that's it. I'm done. I'm off to the TAB.
Yes.
You have to say, this. Whatever you do, you have to do it responsibly. I have to say that as well. Okay?
And I'll tell you what, those stats were very interesting. Let's hope that George Kunia and Tui Rayleigh are watching this show this evening. This is where you get all the real stuff.
Attack the edge, guys. Attack the edge. Make sure that you flood the short side and get numbers, quick hands, bang. That's where your tries come from. And that is what the Taniwha are doing really, really well. They've figured it out. So I think they'll be onto it. And I'm just really excited for Northland, and I'm looking forward to it because they do play some fantastic rugby when they're really on song.
Cool. Well, moving on then to the Super Rugby, and we've had a whole bunch of announcements in the last couple of days, which is around this. So first off, it suddenly looks like that the whole bro love between Rugby Australia and New Zealand Rugby is back on, and we have Super Rugby Trans-Tasman happening in 2021. So for those of you that have not been keeping up, the new structure for Super Rugby next year is that we'll have Super Rugby Aotearoa and Super Rugby AU happening concurrently. So they'll have so for New Zealand it'll be similar to this year with the addition of a final between the first and second. Australia will start 1 week earlier because they will have the final playoff between second and third, and then a final between whoever wins that and the top place. So their competition will take 1 week longer, but we'll both finish on the same date. And then after that, we will move into then what is Super Rugby Trans-Tasman. Now, what it looks like they're going to do, and obviously who knows what is going to happen, is that is that basically they'll forget all the results from the first competitions and start afresh. And the New Zealand sides will play each of the Australian sides 2 at home, 2 away. Oh, sorry, no. So there's 5 teams to play, aren't there? What am I talking about? So either 2 or 3 at home, and then 2 or 3 away. Oh no, sorry, it's 2 at home, 2 away, and then 1 at they're having a super weekend on the middle weekend, or having all 4 games at one location, all 5 games at one location. So there's going to be a super weekend in one place. So everyone gets 2 home games, and then the talk is that it's going to be up in Queensland in Darwin. So the Reds will have 5 games hosted there that weekend, but we'll have to wait and see for a proper announcement on that one. And then the top 2 into a final. Now, would you have included the Super Rugby AU and Super Rugby Aotearoa results as well, boys, or do you think it's right to hold it as a totally separate competition? Boa?
Well, I for one was, from a rugby point of view, I think Super Rugby Aotearoa by itself was just fantastic. The whole commingling is obviously for the TV money and commercial reasoning. I would actually treat the results separately, but that's just my take on it. But interestingly, there was more viewers of Super Rugby Aotearoa across the ditch in Australia. Obviously, numbers. So I think the whole commingling going forward and taking points from your respective competition and mixing together will probably appeal to a wider audience. But my preference is, just keep it separate.
because I guess my point here is that the New Zealand sides will only play Australian sides, and the Australian sides only play New Zealand sides. So it's kind of like you could end up with the Hurricanes having won all 5 of their games, and the Crusaders also having won all 5 of their games, being at the top of the table. Stephen, a bit of a strange one, having not playing each other, not being able to beat your opposition.
Yeah, it is a little, but listen, I think the good thing about it, we've been pleasantly surprised by the Australian national team. Yep, they took one real pounding in that game at home, and of course at Eden Park it was a game that the All Blacks had to work hard to win. But I just wonder if they might be just winning their rugby public back over at the minute. You know, just the fact that the national team is, I think Australian rugby is one of those countries that I think if their national team is doing well, I think there's a bit of enthusiasm about the game. So listen, my thoughts are very similar to Boa.
Yeah, I think. Sorry,
just building on what Stephen is saying. I mean, I think the All Blacks really need to learn a lesson. There's a reason, gentlemen, why statistical patterns return. Once a year, it's usually in Brisbane. Last year it was in Perth. The All Blacks they come up with this experimental side where they weaken their team and they give caps for the sake of it. They make wholesale changes. And then they're going to lose this. And then all of a sudden, the entire country, the media, the knives come out and the pressure's on. And then for whatever reason, we get a home game. This year it didn't happen. And then, we bring our full strength side and absolutely pound them into the oblivion. So next year, hopefully we avoid this annual sort of drift in form because we experiment and tinker with the side too much. Hopefully these, the coaches and selectors learn from it. And we keep the momentum going forward. And this is, this is really critical because all New Zealand rugby are doing is actually assisting the Wallabies and keeping the Wallabies fans afloat by giving them literally a really good opportunity to win. So it's a kind of a double-edged sword. Rightly so, Stephen pointing out that when the Wallabies are doing well, everyone, all these casuals and all the bandwagon jumpers are there. But that is essential in the modern day, the modern economy of rugby, for short-term as well as long-term financial survival.
New Zealand needs Australia for going forward to survive and so we do want we would the last thing in the world we want to see is Australia actually going under. Look, overall I like this idea. I just hope it's not too one-sided, and that we end up with a good competition. Because as Aaron mentioned higher up, where you've got close games and you don't know who's going to win, that's what makes a good competition. So that's hopefully we see that going forward. It also looks like it's probably going to be a one-off, guys. We're probably not going to see it again in 2022. So whoever wins that trophy will get to keep it forever. And it looks like the Super Rugby Aotearoa trophy will get one more run before it goes into someone's cupboard for a long time.
Guys. Also, one thing I want to say is, if you look at Super Rugby, you go right back from the Super 8, the Super 10, and how it evolved. In my personal opinion, the two competitions that really stood out was when it was the Super 12 and also Super Rugby Aotearoa. And the reason is everyone played each other, be it home and away, home or away. And that meant that the teams who really deserved to make it to the playoffs were there because they played each other, they got the points, and they progressed. And I think that the fans really bought into it. And also, it was the right amount of rugby which was being played. There wasn't too much rugby being played. And then, all of a sudden, the last few years, we had all these conference systems. And, we had New Zealand sides who had more points not qualifying for the playoffs. Whereas, teams from South Africa and Australia who had lesser points were leading their respective conference. So, there was all that mishmash and experimenting which really went wrong. So, hopefully, one more run with Super Rugby Aotearoa. And who knows? Maybe just it might survive a little bit longer.
I'm going to just disagree. See, I think that look, conference systems can work and can be fine. And yes, in a conference system, you can end up having more points than someone else and not going through, and that's fine. The problem with Super Rugby was they started off with a complicated conference system where you had 3 sides coming into the finals from the South African conferences and 5 from the Australasian conferences, and it was just very difficult for people to understand how that all hung together. If you look at the way that they do it in the States, you end up with an Eastern Conference and a Western Conference, and you come up with a champion who plays the other champion. And I think that's the way to take it forwards. It would have been, conferences can work, but this mix, but make it 2 teams, then have this grand final between both sides is the way to do it. There's a quick answer for you, that man who is in the live chat. So yes, I am having a nice beer. Thank you. So yes, so it's I don't think there's anything wrong with conferences per se. I think the way they put it in and the way they communicated it was an absolute disaster. But talking of Super Rugby 15, so Super Rugby 12, is that we looks like we're heading back that way in 2022. And New Zealand Rugby has announced their 2 preferred partners. Now, considering Super Rugby in 2022 is supposed to be a joint thing between Australia and New Zealand, it's interesting that New Zealand have announced who the partners are, and Australia doesn't seem to have had any say, or doesn't seem to have much say in it, which is kind of an interesting side note to it. And I hope that doesn't cause another falling out between them. But the 2 sides that they've decided that are the what do you call it? The preferred people are Fiji Rugby Union, with the suggestion that the Fiji Drua could be the brand or the team they use in Super Rugby, with the NRC looking like it has died a death and will not be coming back next year. The Fiji Drua currently do not have a home, and obviously haven't played this year. And then the other one is the Manoa Pacifica, who are rumoured to be playing out of Mount Smart in South Auckland, but Rugby Australia said they would like the Pacifica team to be playing out of West Sydney. So interesting there for both of those as to where they might land up. It does mean that the China Lions and the Asia Dragons have both missed out at the moment, as have Kanaloa Pacifica, who have then gone and launched legal proceedings against New Zealand Rugby. Yeah, not a good move launching legal proceedings by Kanaloa Rugby. I don't think, because they left, or they left Major League Rugby where they supposedly had a terms of agreement under a bit of and threw their toys out the pram then, and it looks like they're throwing their toys out the pram again, Boa. Not the best way to make friends and influence people, eh?
Yeah, look, to be honest, it's been confusing. It's been very confusing. Move to move, and rightly so. You point out, throwing their toys out of the court, and more than anything else, these professional franchises, they need to be able to sustain themselves financially and be viable. So yeah, I mean that's a bit of a asterisk next to Kanaloa, but really excited about the Fijian Drua. I think who knows, they could probably write a similar success story to the Jaguares and now the Pumas, if they can create a similar setup where they can transfer most of those players and form into their test setup where they get some more run on time. And I think it's overdue, because Fijian rugby influence is tremendous on Test footy as we speak, because most of the key players are of Fijian origin, of Fijian birth, Fijian parents, playing in most of the top teams. So long overdue. Really happy. Couldn't be happier. Very excited. And of course, the current Fijian test the 15 side. They've put together very impressive brains trust and coaching staff. John McKee and, of course, the former New Zealand rugby referee Glenn Jackson is part of it as well. And someone I do a lot of talking with, the former Scottish international, keep forgetting his name, Aaron. He's a defense coach who is actually spearheading the new tackle and contact syllabus for World Rugby, which will be launched next year. So lots of good things happening in Fiji rugby, and I think fantastic positive signs for them.
Sorry, folks, I keep muting myself because of cars driving past, so I'm hoping but I keep forgetting to put it back on when I start talking. Yes, I mean the only dark cloud for Fiji at the moment, really, well, a couple of dark clouds, really. One, let's be honest, the history of administration has been poor. So hopefully that piece has been tidied up. Let's be honest, it's not that long ago that we had elections for World Rugby, and one of the Fijian or the Fijian candidate there was pulled out after after some very disturbing reports around how he runs the prison service over there in Fiji. You've got to say that still having the political involvement with that is got to be an issue. Aaron says the Fiji money will come through Chinese funding, so no problems. The other Pacific Island money is a question mark. And again, I guess then there's a question mark there. Again, is what are the Chinese expecting in response for that money? And if that doesn't happen, will that money dry up? And what other things are rugby getting themselves involved with by having that kind of money? Now, Chinese money in a Chinese team, I understand. Chinese money coming through another country's team, it's not necessarily Chinese money per se, but kind of why and where it's being spent. So some interesting things to wait and see there. The other dark mark is that unfortunately their game against France last weekend was cancelled. The Fijian team seems to be continually getting COVID cases, 5 COVID cases this time, including Sami Madrada. Apparently was why that game got cancelled. On a very quick side note on that, I'll come back to what we're talking about, is how can you set up an Autumn Nations Cup and not have a rule in place for what you're going to do if a game gets postponed or cancelled due to COVID? Just nuts. So quite how the points tables worked, who knows? They're going to make it up as they go along. But anyway, that's a total side note. We'll come back to this. Stephen, you're looking...
Paul, I've just got a thought. Western Force are part of the Australian conference next year. Where does this? Obviously, Twiggy Forrest or Andrew Forrest had a big part in rapid rugby. What becomes of rapid rugby?
So far, no news on that one. But my guess is that one of the things that we are seeing from a obviously for next year, these sides that we're talking about here are both putting in for 2022 because they know that travel is going to be an issue again next year, right? Now, one of the things about Global Rapid Rugby is that we had a side in Malaysia, China, Hong Kong, Samoa, Fiji, and Australia. Clearly, that kind of competition is just not going to happen in 2021 because of the lack of travel. And you've got to say, having never run a full season, will it be resurrected in 2022 if the Western Force are part of Super Rugby? I would say probably not, because let's be honest, that whole competition was stood up to keep Western Force alive. And if the Western Force got another competition to be in, I can see him basically just quietly forgetting about it, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think Rapid rugby will have a rapid evaporation of interest as well with this whole situation because, I was having a good think about this whole global season and how to align everything. One option might be where they actually break up the season into 2 or maybe 3 segments where it's a year-round thing, and that will allow, especially some of the countries like Fiji, Samoa, to actually be able to field full-strength sides, because that will then allow some of the clubs to release players for national duty and loan them. So I think it's worth World Rugby pursuing and experimenting, and especially with the spanner of COVID-19 coming into it. That might actually give most of these teams from at-risk countries a better chance of preparing in their, what they call their bio bubble, to minimize the risk. So I think there's got to be a little bit of outside the box thinking here, gentlemen, because if they continue in this fashion, all it will take is one quick outbreak and they'll pretty much, kill it. And I really feel for Fiji because based on what John McKee's been saying, they've been preparing very, very well for this, and then bang, 5 cases, Radradra, the highest profile infection in camp, and it just causes chaos and throws everything right out of left field.
Yeah, someone who says that Western Force talk about using Global Rapid Rugby as a development league. Maybe they'll play it the same. Maybe it'll move to that window at the same time as Minor 10 Cup. I don't know, but I can't see them running it in the current window at the same time as Super Rugby, which is where it was going to be last time. I could be wrong, but we'll have to wait. We'll have to wait and see as to what actually comes of that. As I say, I don't expect to see much of it next year. I think it'll be 2022 if it does resurrect itself, purely because of the amount of travel that is involved in that one. The couple of people in the live chat have mentioned have sort of had concerns around the Moana Pacifica team, particularly around its funding. And I'll be honest, it's a bit difficult to find out anything about it. I had a search earlier for it, and there is a website called moanapacifica.com, but it is an education app on a phone. It's got nothing to do with the rugby team, which is not a good start. So as far as I can tell, they do not have a website, so you can't see who is involved. The New Zealand Players Association is clearly has been an active backer of it. Now, quite if they are officially involved or just I don't know. There was talk of counties Manukau providing coaching resources, but when you look at the coaches that have been lined up for the game that's going to be played in 2 weekends' time against the Maori All Blacks, you'll see that it's Tano Umanga and Aaron Major, who have got, as far as I'm aware, obviously Tano Umanga used to have contacts with the counties Manukau, but that's a long time ago now, and he's purely in the Blues setup. And Aaron Major, I don't believe has contacts with counties Manukau. He's still apparently living down in Dunedin, where obviously he's just finished up coaching for the Highlanders. So it's difficult at the moment to understand kind of what's going on there. We've had various ex-All Blacks or old All Blacks sort of mention support and be apparently part of it, but finding out anything about what they really are at the moment is very difficult, very difficult to do, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, and look, if Moana Pacifica was serious, they based themselves in Manukau, South Auckland, the heart of all Polynesian talent, the biggest catchment area, where my club, Manukau Rovers, we have 9 schools in close vicinity of South Auckland to our club, supplying a hotbed of talent, large number of Polynesian Pacifica players. And of course, same thing with the coaching base. We have some quality Polynesian coaches. In fact, Manautai, who is head coach at Papatui Rugby, former Tongan international, and of course, our very own Auckland NPC, Minor 10 coach Lama Eremea, and Philo Tiatia, proud All Blacks of Polynesian background. So, yeah, I think even more than counties Manukau, or anywhere else, a team like Moana Pacifica belong in South Auckland, in Manukau.
I get that. I'm just saying at the moment, it's whilst the sort of rumours of what people are kind of going, oh, they'll probably play at Mount Smart. They'll be based in South Auckland. That's nice, but at the moment,
it's very vague. It's very vague and
very vague. All of the announcements coming out of New Zealand Rugby, they don't. As far as I can tell, they've not actually made their own announcement of anything yet. It's all that New Zealand Rugby has announced everything. So, do they even have their own spokesperson? Do they have any organisation at all, or is it actually a New Zealand Rugby team run? It's just unknown at the moment as to what their makeup is, and it's very vague, and who knows at the moment. Now, look, it looks like they'll actually have a game in about a week and a half. 2.5 weeks time, which is a step above what Kanaloa Pacifica have managed, because they've not managed to put a team together yet. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of team they can put together. It's going to come off at a guess, most of them will be Mitre 10 Cup players, is my expectation. Hence why it's being held the week after the Mitre 10 Cup finals, and so most of the players will come from there. It'll be interesting to see where. So you got to say what side they put together for this one. Will that be any reflection of the side that'll be actually happening in 2022? No, let's be honest. This will be a one-off team, but at least it'll prove they can actually put a team together and play a game, which will be the first stepping stone. When you look at the teams, look at the other people who've been turned down. China Lions actually put a side together and played a couple of games and had the backing of Bay of Plenty, so could have played out of Rotorua and Taupo. You look at Asia Dragons, who took part in the World Tens tournament in Dubai recently, have taken part in Global Rapid Rugby before, have a history of being able to put teams together and enter competitions. So it's interesting that they've gone with a group that, as far as I can tell, well, I don't know who the group is, but as far as I can tell, they've never actually put a team together before, never entered a competition before. So it'll be interesting to see. Obviously, we hope that they go well, right? Let's be blunt about this. But let's just see how it all pans out.
Yeah, well, who knows? They might be sponsored by cryptocurrency for all we know. So let's hope that's not the case. Let's hope that's not the case. They can actually put something viable, and it'll be really intriguing, for a better choice of words, to see what happens next.
May you live in interesting times, as they say.
2020. There you go.
So, Stephen, any thoughts or final comments on that before we wrap up?
No, not at all. Just a quick thing I almost forgot to mention as well. I think they had the North Harbour Sevens, Club Sevens on the weekend, and that was taken out by Takapuna, so congratulations. And there was a Sevens tournament at Waitemata Park on a Saturday as well, Boa. Not 100% who took out the final.
Eden.
Do you know who took
the
out
Costa Boys, featuring heavily, fresh off from some solid form, the 85 Barbarians Championship. Boy, they were a handful. There's some really good games. My club, Manukau Rose, we had a classic arm wrestle against Marist. It was a deadlock. 30 seconds into the final whistle, there's one slight knock on. Ball gets scooped up. There's some really interesting, very entertaining rugby being played under the hot sun. And I have to say, the faithful crowd who turned up, they were entertained, and it was a breath of fresh air, because most of these boys playing Premier rugby due to COVID-19 didn't get a chance to do so. All the games were played in very good spirit, great camaraderie, it was end-to-end action. Excellent work.
Cool. It is. The seventh season is going to be much shorter this year because there isn't any rep sevens going on due to COVID. But I think each of the provinces are hosting their own sevens at the moment, or have just done so. So yeah, do if you can get along to those are good fun days out as well. It's interesting to see clubs advertising for coaches at the moment. One of those is Waihi. So Waihi is looking for expressions of interest for their A team and B team. If you fancy coming over here and coaching one of those teams, then do give us a shout out.
We know an Englishman. We know an Englishman down that way who might be able to offer up his services.
We know he doesn't know the first thing about coaching as well. But there is a certain Wayne Smith that is associated with the club, and if he's not required in Japan, will be apparently offering his services as an assistant or as a consultant. So hey, if you're an up and coming coach and you fancy learning from one of the best, it could be a fantastic opportunity to be as well. Yes, folks, lots of interesting things going on. I say this weekend we have the Minor 10 Cup semi-finals. Myself and Stephen will be at Eden Park, bringing you post-match reaction from that one, post-match interviews with the players and the coaches. Obviously, we also have that great war game coming up between the Wallabies and the Pumas. Wow, how is that one going to go? At the moment, it's probably the hardest game to pick this weekend. So do join us. So we will be watching that one as well. Have a wonderful rest of your week, folks. And don't forget, you can join me at 7 a.m. every single morning for the morning sports briefing.